Okay, here we go. Welcome everyone to our webinar this afternoon in Los Angeles, at least. I know it's a little bit later on the East Coast in the United States. My name is Gudrun Giddings and I'm the president of Mentor Foundation USA. And today we have with us a really nice group, and you will hear some awesome question and answers and conversations, and we'll have some fun. I just want to acknowledge as well some of our supporters, which is SAMHSA. That's the reason we can do this webinar today, and also Second Genesis, who is once again sponsoring us for Living the Example contest that we're having, and is also part of the theme of this webinar. So thank you, Second Genesis. Also, actually, I want to thank the Swedish American Chamber of Commerce in Los Angeles, because we have two wonderful hosts from there that are co-hosting today. So that's fantastic. And also the network. And there I come to you, our audience. Thank you for taking the time on a Thursday before the holidays to tune in. This is a live stream. We are recording it for future versions, and some people, like for example other parts around the world, that wanted to see this, but it's in the middle of the night for some, so we're recording it so we can share it later with everyone. And then I also wanted to take the opportunity, since we're here all of us and it is almost the holidays and the end of the year, if you're liking this webinar and what Mentor Foundation USA is doing, maybe you can, donate $10 or whatever you have, so we can continue this awesome work that we're doing. But not only for Mentor USA, actually for the youth in the United States and around the world. Sometimes I think that it's even more important that they feel that you care and is supported. So remember that. And also, again, you can write off your donation on your taxes. Not that that is super important. The important part is the giving, but it doesn't hurt that it's a win-win scenario for everybody in this case. So with that said, I am also going to say that for the audience, we cannot see you and we cannot hear you, but towards the end of the session, we will bring up your questions, and during the whole hour, you can ask them. The question and answer button is just below. If you look on your screen, it says Q&A. You can just text your questions there, and I will ask them a little bit later towards the end. And then I am now going to introduce Ida. Ida is working at Mentor Foundation USA and has been now with us for a long time. She oversees, among other things, the newsletter and our social media, and has been working on this webinar together with her colleagues on the other side of my screen, at least, Clara and Ellen from the Swedish American Chamber of Commerce, who are also working in various capacities over there, and has also put this webinar together with Ida. So that's very nice. So three lovely young ladies that are going to interview three lovely young men on the other side, our panelists. So I'm going to start with one of them, which is Jeremy, who is the president of Mentor Foundation USA's Youth Advisory Committee. And maybe Jeremy, welcome first of all. Maybe you can say just a little bit about yourself.
Yes, of course. So I've been with Mentor Foundation USA since 2018 as part of the Living the Example program. And for the past year, I have been the president of the created Youth Advisory Committee. So it's all about healthy living and activism for youth. Apart from that, I am a college student and I also work part-time.
Busy man. Thank you, Jeremy. We'll hear obviously more from you, and then we're going to go to Gael, that is here on the West Coast and was the winner of the very last Living the Example contest that we have before the pandemic hit us. So in 2019, we had the pleasure to host Gael on the red carpet here in Los Angeles, where I just said to him, reminded him before we all invited you audience to listen in, that it was nice to see him arrive in this limo, walking the red carpet and taking pictures and all of those things. And he's done so well ever since I met him. So Gail, maybe talk a little more about what you do when you're not arriving in a limo.
Yeah, that's definitely a rare occurrence for me. But yeah, my name is Gael. I'm currently 18 years old, and I'm the creator and host of the Teenager Therapy podcast that I started 3 years ago when I was 15. So it's been a little bit. And we describe teenager therapy as a coming of age story told in real time. It's a culmination of mistakes and growth, but most importantly, it's a reminder you're not alone. And one of our core values in the podcast is vulnerability and feeling less alone. And it's something that I try to spread with each little episode that we do.
Yeah, that is needed for everyone, Gael. I
Oh,
think
yes,
every
it is.
single
It
person on
really
the
is.
planet. Yeah. It's so nice to see that you're doing so well. That's fantastic. And thank you for being part of this. And then also we have Gizim, who is a good friend of mine, as I said, and has done also some amazing things. I must say, I got to know him when he was very involved in the music industry. He still is, but he does so many other things as well. And I have to say this because I'm so proud, Gazim, that you just literally not even a month ago released your first book, Unlock the Power of You, and it went to #1 on Amazon in the United States and also some other countries around the world, which is amazing for a first book. I mean, amazing.
Insane. I know.
Yeah, I don't know, like but not only that, he does a lot of different things, and you'll get to know him during this hour. And mostly for us at Mentor, so grateful that Gazim has joined us as our programming director. He's been working with us for a couple of months now, and him and I have big plans for Mentor going into 2022. Yeah, exactly. So
let's go.
but without me doing that, maybe you can also, like Jeremy and Gael, say a little bit about yourself.
Yes, first of all, thank you for the very nice words. So I am an educator and a mentor, a speaker, and I have worked in education for the 7 last years now. So I started working in education in Sweden, and then that took me to the United States. So I was a part of developing the new institute called the Institute of Arts and Innovation, which is located in Westlake Village in California. It launched August 2019, and then the pandemic hit, and then we transformed online and had a great time, and were thankfully recognized by Forbes for the transitioning from going from campus to online education. So we've done great things, and yeah, through that era, me and Gudrun have always stayed connected. And then she said, "Hey, you should be here," and I said, "Let's go."
Yeah.
So here we are.
I couldn't think of anyone better. You're like, it's like you've been in training for Mentor all your life. It's like,
yes,
it actually was very serendipitously, so it worked out great. So
I'm excited.
Fantastic. Thank you all again for being here, all of you, including our audience. So I think I'm going to just turn it over to Ellen a little bit. That's going to just like walk us through not everything, but just like what sort of topics we're going to hit during this hour and things like this. And so Ellen, you take it away, and I'm going to now be quiet for a bit.
Yeah, thank you for this great introduction, and also fun to hear a little bit more about you too, Gail and Jeremy and Gazim. So Clara and I and Ida will serve as your moderators during this webinar, and also conversation, I should say. And I and Clara represent the chamber. So, and the chamber, for you who might not know, we operate as a bridge between Sweden and the US. And we're very happy to be able to collaborate with Mentor on this too. So for this webinar, we are thinking to discuss 3 different themes, starting off with social media, and then move on to talking about peer pressure and underage drinking, and also substance use. And then for our last theme, talk about living the example. So we're very interested and excited to hear your thoughts about these things. And to start off with social media, that is a big part of our society today and in the 21st century, which is the theme on this webinar as well. We were wondering if you, Jeremy and Gael, could give us an insight on how social media is a part of your, but also your peers' everyday life, just to start off the conversation.
Yeah, of course. So social media, I mean, I'm in an interesting spot because obviously social media is kind of my job. So because of that, I spend a lot of time on the internet, as you would imagine. Um, and I remember that there's been times where I am starting to get a little bit tired of social media, and I decided, I wish I could just take a break and, delete some of these apps that I'm spending a lot of time on. So in order to kind of force me to get outside of that social media bubble, and I can't just easily click on an app and start doom scrolling, which sometimes I have a habit of doing. But then I realized I can't really do that because it is my job after all, and I have to kind of keep posting on social media, and then I'll stay on track with trends. And a big part of what I do is just being online, and so it definitely makes it difficult to me to disconnect from social media. But that's why I have an interesting perspective that I think it certainly can be helpful in a lot of ways. I think social media is what has allowed um, people to come together and, one, build communities of like-minded individuals, and two, um, organize in a way to make real change, especially for activists and activism. That's one of the ways that social media has been really impactful, and I think will be a defining characteristic into how we progress as a society in the 21st century. And then apart from that, I realized that social media also has a lot of negative traits associated with it. I mean, for one, if you're not aware of the algorithm and how it works, it could be difficult to understand what kind of content you're seeing. And so what you will find is a lot of people tend to start getting fed content that they may not necessarily agree with, but it kind of like slowly creeps up on your feed. And then before you know it, you're sucked into this whole world of either misinformation or just beliefs that you don't necessarily align with. But now, since you've seen it too much, it's kind of like warped your reality of what you believe and what you enjoy looking at. So for me, a big part of that is also understanding how the algorithm works and how you could use it to serve you instead of it kind of just feeding you as many things as possible, even though it might not be what you want to see.
And to add on to that, I'm a little bit different because I'm probably conservative on the internet, so I don't use it as much as often. So I don't understand how things work probably as much as you do, but I think it's important to keep that balance of knowing what is real life and what is just your digital life, because then you can just keep your life organized and separated in certain ways, and then just keep yourself in balance to make sure that one part is not becoming too much of an issue for your other parts of your life.
Yeah. And how do you do that? How do you personally keep that balance? Do you actively choose not to go online because you don't enjoy it, or is it just you trying to find that balance?
So what I do personally is I don't use notifications.
Okay.
I know that seems like a far-fetched answer, but at the end of the day, that's what kind of keeps me focused on what I have to do for the day. But of course, I acknowledge that it's extremely different when it's your job and you have to know the latest trends, or you're fed all of this information, and that you have to be able to know what is going to make you popular and what's going to make you money. So
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
where
That's funny, that the notification thing, because I kind of do something similar. I do it specifically for TikTok because I remember every time someone sends you a video, you get a notification, and then I keep getting it, and I keep checking my phone because I hear it dinging, and so I check it. And I feel like the more notifications you get, the more likely you are to actually open your phone to something. So yeah, maybe I'll try not having notifications on, because I do think it helps when your phone isn't constantly like lighting up, because I like look over and then I like stop and look over again, and that gets like really, really annoying very quickly.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Like just being able to focus on things, and then you get a notification which like interrupts you to want to do something else. So
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
very good point.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely one of the more annoying things about having a device is that if you keep it within you, it just lights up. And I I find that like it almost makes me ill sometimes. Like I get dizzy because I'm like looking on, like, let's say I'm like on my computer or something doing some work or on paper, and then I'm like constantly looking left and right, or like, seeing like what is there. And it's something that gets you. So sometimes I try to like keep my phone really far away so I can't even reach for it.
It's very interesting to hear your views growing up in this generation, but we also got Gesim on. And when you were younger, social media was nothing like this, right? However, you become sort of an expert in social media and marketing. So with all your experience, both growing up and with all the youth you met throughout life, what do you think are the biggest challenges that youth face these days in relation to social media?
Well, for me personally, like I
I
said
think I
earlier,
was muted.
ah,
Was that
go
to
ahead.
me? Was that to me?
Yes,
Clara?
yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, sorry.
About that.
I was gonna say, first of all, you guys probably have to stop me because this is a subject that I like to talk about a lot in school. So when I'm done, just tell me. So obviously, first of all, the biggest challenge that I actually see with my own students is that there's this idea of who you should be and how to do things, and especially with likes and engagement, and you do things to get more engagement, and then once you fulfill, I mean, even with students that I've seen who have started to get more likes and the kind of the idea work for them, then usually most of the time it's not who they are, and then they feel really bad and they don't think it was a way of getting to the success in a purposeful way, because life is all about being in a purposeful way. I mean, even the biggest superstar who has just made it, they say at one point they're not happy if it's not giving them something to the world, and then they start changing their path, and then they become a part of organizations like we are doing and stuff. So I think with my students, tell them from day one, be purposeful, like understand why you're using social media and how to use it. For me, that's what I did. I was a part of 2006 when YouTube came in, and I used it as a storyteller. I never followed the trends. I never followed anything of what the society started to tell the younger generation to be. And I think that's the biggest issue today, is that, I mean, there's this idea, but also another issue that I see is that the bullying. When I was in high school or in middle school, obviously, I think I speak for everyone here, we've all experienced some kind of bullying once in our lifetime, but that didn't follow us when we got home. But because of social media, people create accounts, start posting things about these kids, and then I see them, I have to report them. Sometimes and it doesn't stop. So how do we stop it, and how do we work with these people who are affected, and those kids that we sometimes know who are doing it, and how do we talk to them, and parents? It's so much. But I think, as everything in life, it's pros and cons, and I think with if you just don't know how to be a storyteller on social media, I actually, in my opinion, think it's more cons. I just don't think it's going to be a healthy way. I mean, it's just not going to be healthy for you. But I think for me, when I, at least for myself, start to sharing a message or work with students, or I mean, now becoming a book, connecting with readers, anything, it makes sense for me why I am on social media. But with the younger generation, they're facing so many issues. It's an idea on how to look, or the bullying part, or even people making a meme of someone who is in a class, and then they it's I mean, obviously the suicide rate have gone up a lot because of social media in the younger generation. So for me, at least, the work that I try to do with the students is definitely talking about the consequences with the cons, and the beneficial with the pros, and try to make them understand that this success path. And I mean, seeing Kylie Jenner and seeing what she is doing, my opinion, it's not what you should do and how to look, or just find your own story, find your own path, and try to build success from just the person that you want to be. But also, I think at the end of the day, I do think a lot of, I mean, even with the younger kids that I work with, because I mostly work with younger generations in high schools, and most of them know what's right and wrong. But obviously, they need us to be like, yes, this is right and this is wrong. But they're kind of in this phase where like, is that right? Is that wrong? Is that right? Is that wrong? So I think that's why it's nice to just be there. And we all obviously have the responsibility where we can just like, this is right, this is wrong. But in another thing that I mean, if anyone is hearing this who is in education, the traditional educational system does not work anymore. This might be a controversial opinion, but it just doesn't, because social media has made us now work with more individuals and work with person to person, because some people face with different, issues and whatever that is. So for me, that's why I have my mentorship program at the Institute, and work with students and work with them one-to-one, and just create this personal development programs and make sure that these students find their strengths, find anything that they can work on, and try to be better. See, I told you someone has to stop, because I'm
not going to stop you. Actually, I have a follow-up question.
Okay, let's go.
With a short answer, hopefully, Gazim.
Yes. Yes.
Because I think this is really interesting. You said this in the beginning, that you try when you work with the students or with young people to find a purpose, and everybody wants to have a purpose in life.
100%.
To be, then if you're on social media, what is an example of a purpose, would you say? What, I mean, it's a matter of opinion, but just as a couple of examples.
Yeah, I mean, so a purpose, first of all, for myself, I am a former refugee from Kosovo. I came to Sweden, and I was also in a lot of situations where I didn't feel that I could be the person I wanted to be, because maybe I wasn't blonde or didn't have blue eyes or whatever that was. But because of the story that my mom told me about the person I am and where we came from, it made me understand that I had a reason to fulfill in this life. So that obviously became the rocket of where I am today. And same with the students that I meet. Some students sometimes, I mean, I was just working with the students the other day, who was making all those happy songs. And I was asking the students, say, it doesn't seem believable. Like, is this happy, or do you want to be happy? And then he said he wants to be happy. Then we started to talk, and he started to cry, and he explained that his dad is going through, alcohol issues. And then he started to play some other songs. And when he played those songs, I was like, it just changed everything, because it became authentic. So I think for me, a purpose means when you find an authentic message, right, that makes you go passionate.
Yeah, so like a purpose, I just want for the audience, and there might be just also educators and parents and caregivers and youth, that sees and hears this. So like I would say, Gael, as well, I guess you have a purpose with your social media, without asking you the question, but for me, just knowing what you're doing, and also for the audience, you should check Gael's side out on his podcast. We'll make sure that people knows about that as well, because that is a true purpose. And I think you're very genuine, Gael, with your messaging there. And then you're using social media not to maybe post just random whatever pictures, not there is anything wrong with it, but you have a purpose of being on social media because you are wanting to get your message that you believe in across. And the same with Jeremy. I know, Jeremy, you're not so much or whatever, but you also have a purpose with us, for example, because we, with our social media via Mentor, highlights you, the Youth Advisory Committee, like for the newsletter that went out today, for example, and that we're then also promoting via our social media. definitely has a purpose. I guess that's what I wanted to get to the core of, when,
Yeah.
because it is one of those things, like you create an account, then now what do you put on there? But anyway, we should leave that. I know there must be, I mean, we have so many questions that
So much.
we're not,
Yes.
I mean, we're going to have to do a series of this. Like, we will end in 2025 to get
Yeah.
through the questions. Okay. I think Ida has a question, right?
I was going to say, I think, as I said, we have to move on because we have so many questions we want to cover. But I thought maybe we could end like the social media, wrap it up with a question. If you could give an example of someone you follow on social media and why you follow them that you like. So like on a positive note. And then we can move on to the next subject.
Okay. For
I think
is that
we're asking all of our panelists. So Gizim, you can go first.
okay?
And
Okay.
then, yeah.
Yeah, so I lately have been really inspired by Kevin Love, who is an NBA player. He plays for Cleveland. He is obviously very talented, but I love that he's been very open about his mental health, and he does a lot of mental health activities, and he has his own foundation for mental health, because I think, especially in the male sports athletic programs and sports in general, there's a stigma to talk about mental health, and he does it in such a, once again, purposeful way, and talks about it and raise awareness, and is allowed on panels and just does great work. So I think Kevin Love is someone that as Gail said, that, you know, we're feeded with so many things, and we kind of have to decide we want to get feeded with. So for me, Kevin Love has definitely been someone. And also for me, it's been nice to feel that with, because I'm not into sports. I mean, that's not my industry or education. But once again, when his purpose has connected with me, and it's connected, and I talk about him to my students. So he's done a really good job. So I like him.
Then Jeremy or Gael jump in, and yeah.
Yeah. Do you have anyone that you follow on social media that you like, and why?
He follows Mentor USA.
Mentor USA, of course. And just organizations in general that you believe in and that have a good purpose. I would follow as many of those as I was like, because they provide inspiration for me to get through the day if I'm having a bad day. And then you can also send messages to other people. You have your friends follow them as well. That's in general what I really look up to, like UNICEF, NAMI, anything about mental health positivity. That's what gets me going. And then as well as having a balance between some of your like personal accounts that you like, you know, if you like music, Avicii. I like Avicii, so I follow Avicii.
Yeah, we do.
The account.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. Great, and good to know as well. Good, Gael.
Yeah, so for me, I would say, I think sometimes I forget because I follow so many people that it's hard to keep track of everyone, but someone that I really enjoy is Deja Fox. She's an activist that does a lot of, activism in general about like the issues that are important to her. And mostly what I really enjoy is how open she is about being, a POC, a first-gen student attending a very, very, very good school, a very good private school, Ivy League school. And so sharing her experience as what it's like being a woman of color, especially like in that field and in that environment, is really inspiring to see.
Okay. Thank you. I actually have, before we leave the area of social media, I actually would like to pose this question that we got from one of our audience, from Stephen. Thank you, because it sort of fits into what we just spoke about. So instead of saving it to the end, I'm actually just going to answer it. I mean, I'm not going to answer it. I'm going to pose it to our panelists. Stephen is wondering, in your opinion, anyone of you, not all three needs to answer, how old should an individual be before they're able to access social media responsibly? What do you think, Gazim? You might have more experience in this, and since you're working with youth and schoolers, what do you think? Should there be an age?
Yes, 100%. So we usually, when I work with young talent, we say 13, but with access by parents. So that means that they're 13, but a parent still has access to the account. And 16. It also depends on, once again, the individual and a lot of stuff. But usually the 16 is when we can trust and see that they are, we can trust them to start using social media by themselves.
And I think just to, thank you, Stephen, that's a great question. And just to take in mind as well, and as Stephen did write, in your opinion. So I just want to, with this entire webinar that we're doing today, please keep in mind that, it is our opinions and not like an expert advice, or it differs, what one age is for another, or all of these different things. This is just a conversation that I love to have, and especially since we have some youth on this one as well, and young people, and not just we're trying to guess what young people are thinking and what they're doing with their lives, but we actually have them, and just it's just an open conversation. But I thought that was a great question. So
I
now,
just want to, can I just add something? I think it's important to say that, because it's not just about the kids that use social media. It's also the people that can interact with them. So sometimes, for me, this is what I always tell my friends too, when I tell them, hey, drive safe, and they're like, I drive good. I'm like, I trust you, but I don't drive the cars around you. So it's the same thing here. Sometimes you just don't know who's gonna interact, and you just have to be very careful.
Yeah, that's great. Actually good to remember as well. So awesome. Well, then next questions. I don't know who has that one.
Well, we would love to hear more about what you had to say on social media, because we had like a million other questions, but as Gudrun said, we will have to make a follow-up because the time's limited. So I think it's time to move on to the next subject, so we have time to cover at least a couple of questions for each theme. So we'll jump into talking about peer pressure and alcohol and substance use in relation to peer pressure. So I'd like to start off by asking you, Jeremy, if you can tell us a bit about your experience with like the climate amongst youth today in relation to drugs and alcohol. Would you say that using and drinking is acceptable among teens today, or are you expected to participate?
So personally, I haven't experienced it that much. I don't think that it's something as concrete that it might have used to have been. But definitely, I think, of course, social media, bringing that into play, when you're seeing it constantly, that might bring into a problem of when you see what is behaviors that are right and what are behaviors that are wrong. But personally, I don't really have anything to say.
Yeah, and do you have any insights on that as well, Gal, maybe?
Yeah, so I would say that there's definitely it's normalized, I think, for teenagers to be like expected. It's not really shocking when you find out there's like another teen that's like drinking, underage drinking. That's not really, it's something that I think happens often. It's kind of normalized in society. Everyone's aware of it, and it kind of has become normalized to the point that it's like, well, everyone does it, so like it's not really a big deal because everyone does it. And so it's definitely common, and the peer pressure that you feel isn't because someone's telling you to do it. It's because you yourself are choosing not to, while seeing everybody engage in that activity. And so whether people are doing drugs or drinking alcohol, and if you decide not to, there's the biggest thing that you'll feel is the peer pressure of conforming to what everyone around you is doing. Because if you don't, there might be cases where you're isolated, and if someone's going to go drink with friends, you can't join that. So maybe you can't join your friends, and you're left kind of like alone, like, oh, I don't really want to be around that. And so I guess I just have to deal with it. It's kind of like a consequence for not giving into that peer pressure. And I think that's what a lot of teenagers struggle with, is that you have two choices. Is one, choose not to participate in drinking culture and in in doing all these drugs, or risk and risk feeling alone and left out, or engage in it possibly risk your health and the health of others around you, the safety of others around you, but at least you know you feel like you're part of the community.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting aspect of the peer pressure, because it's not always so obvious, the peer pressure. It's in a different way. But for you, Gizim, who have met a lot of youth, do you think
Yes.
that youths like realize the risks about different drugs, smoking marijuana or drinking alcohol, or what attitudes do you see?
I mean, as Gail said, it's definitely more normalized, and I think it is because of social media. Because, as I said, the trends and people do songs and stuff, and they promote this lifestyle, and these kids think, you know, it's cool. And but obviously, that's something I've always been against with. But I think the thing that I see with the students is that a lot of the students who have been honest in Sweden and in the US and shared with me that they've done it. Once I talk to them and understand, you know, the situations, and I'm trying to be careful because I want to respect the stories that have been told. But I think in general, I mean, I can talk for myself because as being the program director, I've actually, because I do see the questions in front of me and just not done any of these talks, like never. So I think for me is that my parents were very good with the consequences and the effect and everything that involves drinking like underage. So I see when I meet the students who have done it, I mean, obviously, I've had students who've done it really early, but how fast we react and how fast we give them the attention and talk to them about why that's not the right thing to do, definitely you see an effect that you want to see, and usually you can turn them around. But in most cases, parents has to be involved very fast too. Because, you know, as we know, sometimes it can be a young kid who has issues with some things, and then they choose alcohol or drugs, and so we just have to really dive in and make sure, you know, why is this happening, and dive in.
But without, I know that this is one of the questions, but I'm just going to jump in quickly, Gazim.
Yeah.
So I think
I'm trying to be careful. That's why I'm like,
this is
like
always difficult for,
yeah.
I think, adult people to talk. And I always try to remember how I was as a teenager, when how I wanted adult people to talk to me about anything. Like, how do you, without saying names or whatever, we should not reveal anyone who we know or telling stories, so it's like anonymous, but is there like a tip you can give to any adult on this webinar listening, that's how to approach a young person, so the young person doesn't like shun away, but instead it's easier to share, or, you know, like you say, once they share honestly with you, it's a lot easier to handle the problem, obviously, or the challenges. But how do you then get there? Because most people go like, no, you know, and they walk away.
But I think one thing that once again, I'm just speaking from my own journey with parents who have found out that the kid have done drugs, is the transparency between the parent and the kid. Because the worst cases that we had is when the parent make it about themselves, like, look what you've done to us, and and then the kid becomes even more regretful, but then he's gonna start living this life when he's just gonna act like he's not doing it, but then usually gets worse on the side. But if the parent kind of comes down in the level of this kids, and in Albanian we have this way of saying that when someone needs you, kind of have to like go down on their knees to talk with them, and not like do, you know, this is what you should do, this is wrong. So I think just go down so they actually feel the support. Because I mean, I can share one story, is that most of the students that I personally have had, not saying where, but have done it because they don't feel seen at home by parents or whatever that situation is. And then what's that, you hopefully, it's happened many times when that relationship rekindles and things happen, and they feel that they have a friend in a parent too, and not just a parent who's telling them what to do and what's right and what's wrong, because there's obviously emotional things that to get solved and things.
Yeah.
But once that usually is in place, and the kids feel that they can be transparent with their kid, and because I do remember one situation, there was this guy who really, I mean, he was just perfect and everything, but he was very scared to ask his parent about money. And then he came to me and almost said that I feel like I am scared of asking them because they're gonna yell. So I almost wanna not do ask them and just get the money on another way. And I was like, how are you gonna get the another way? And it's coming up with different ideas, which was not okay. And I was like, this is very strange. But then he said, but this is the thing that, I am great in school, great in things, why am I not okay to just ask my parents for hey, can I get $20 or $30? And then he felt at that age, you never know where your mind goes, where you feel like you cannot just have a transparent conversation with your parents. So we, in that situation, we actually called the parents, and I had to step in and tell them and then he cried, the parent cried, and then usually gets better. But I think that's why I personally love to be in education, because a lot of the issues are usually seen in education. You hear, and students and things. And so, but I would say the number one is the transparency, how parents are transparent with the kid, and the kid is transparent with their parents when it's needed.
My personal opinion only. I also like that you mentioned this, that maybe if you're an adult, not make it all about yourself,
Oh, yes, that's the worst.
I think that's that pretty much goes with all relationships, no matter who it is. You want to be there, you want to see the person in front of you and not make it about you, like it's your fault, or the blaming or whatever. So that was great. Okay, now look at the time. What are the favorite questions that Clara, Ellen, and Ida want to ask? Because we probably have to jump all around our themes and get to something before we get to our audience questions, because we only have 15 minutes left.
Yeah, and I think we want to go into living the example. And for you who don't know what Living the Example is a peer-to-peer program by Mentor Foundation with the purpose to shift the attitude amongst youth towards living a healthy, substance-free lifestyle. And since 2012, Mentor has also, in relation to the program, hosted a contest where youth send in a very short video of them doing something. It could be having coffee with a friend or doing sports, anything healthy. And we cannot, of course, not talk about this without talking to you, Gael, who is the 2019 contest winner. Could you just tell us about the experience and, of course, the prize ceremony?
Yeah, so Living the Example was definitely a highlight of the year for 2019, because it was actually kind of funny how I came across it. I got an ad on Instagram. I was just going through, scrolling through stories, and then an ad came up that was like, oh, check out the Living the Example contest, apply or, enter now. And I was like, oh, okay. I decided to be okay, let me see what this is. And so I looked at it. I was like, oh wow, it's it seems like it's a pretty cool prize. You go to LA for an event, you win some a cash prize as well, and it looked pretty interesting. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll enter it. I had to check if I was is this something I could enter? And it was. You just had to show what you were doing, then how you were living the example of staying drug free. And I was like, oh, I have a podcast where we just obviously advocate about all these different issues. I feel like that applies. And so I recorded a quick video of me talking about the podcast and what it is that I did and how I lived the example. I submitted it. And then to my surprise, I like eventually won. I remember when I like woke up that morning, I was like going to school, and then like I see like, congratulations, you won first place in like the email header, and like that was really weird because it was kind of like the first time like I had really like won something, being like first. So it was kind of weird because it's like, really, like first. I had to like keep rereading it because I was like, oh wow, that feels pretty cool. And so won that, and that was a really nice feeling. And then for the actual ceremony, I mean, it was really great. Living the example, and they sent out a limo, and then I went with my friends and my family, and then we went to LA, and thankfully it wasn't very far, but enjoyed that ride getting there. And then we got to this beautiful home, and there was food, and there was a bunch of people, and then there was a red carpet when we came out, and we came out of the limo and took some pictures with everyone. There was some really great folks there, and then I got to know the whole Living the Example team, from Mentor Foundation. And then yeah, it was a really great evening. I talked a little bit about what it is and what I did when I was there during the event. And then yeah, after that I wrapped up and we went home, and it was definitely something that a memory that I hold very dear to me, and it was really fun. So it's something that I had actually been waiting to like share with my followers and be like, you should definitely go apply, because it was a really good experience. But then obviously like all the lockdowns happened, and so we're waiting for this year's.
Yeah,
Really,
I
thank
think
you. I remember that one as well. Sorry, Ida, and just have to say, because I didn't mention this in the beginning, I was waiting for the steam to come up, so we can also say to everybody listening, and even if you're not between 13 and 24, please tell, because I know that everybody knows somebody between 13 and 24. All you need to do is just send a video. It doesn't have to be edited, doesn't have to be music. You can just hold your cell phone up, just like Gael did, and everybody thinks they're not going to win first prize, and then they do. So send it to us before January 17th. That's our deadline. So you have the whole holiday, you're off school and all of these things, and you can just do it. And the prize this year is $500 cash and an experience which is out of this world. We have committed to not tell people what it is. I know what it is. I want to win it, but I'm over 24. You can't tell, but I am. But I urge everybody to just go ahead and do it. It's a really cool contest, and we're going to have also a prize ceremony. Gael, you will be very invited as one of our VIP guests to come back. Maybe I'll find even a role for you to do there or something like that. But spread the word. It's free to enter it, and it's super simple, and you just send it in. And who knows, you'll be the winner for 2022. So anyway, then next question. Sorry, I interrupted, Ida.
No, I was just gonna say what you said. Like, if there's one takeaway, it should be like how easy it is to actually, enter this contest, just like you mentioned, Gail. Yeah, and I just think everybody should take the chance. But speaking about, engaging with Mentor, we have Jeremy, who's the president of the Youth Advisory Committee, like we mentioned before. So could you maybe tell us like what has been one of your highlights from being a part of Mentor USA?
Yeah, of course. So I started in the Living the Example program myself in 2018, like mentioned before. Basically, the program coordinator there had come to the school. They explained the story, really captivated some students, and then we got to work on building our community and educating our fellow peers on both dangers of substance abuse and alternatives on how to live a healthy life. So after we did some in-school programs and outreach community events for the year ending, stuff got a little bit mixed up during COVID, but everything was brought back together when we created the Youth Advisory Committee. And what we've been doing since then is holding virtual meetings and trying to interact with youth around the world, well, especially in the US, but to a broader sense around the world, just sharing our message that, if you're out there and you want to live, a healthy life, and you're influenced by, maybe the negativity that we talked about on social media, there's people like you out there, And I think that's the best part of Mentor Foundation USA, so that we're bringing everyone together for a great cause. So I'm really grateful right now that we have a great team. Right now we're all in college, we're all working on our separate degrees, we're all from different backgrounds of life, so it doesn't matter where you come from. We all just want to help build each other up, learn skills together, get experience, and that's what I think the best part about it is.
That's really great. And I also, when you were talking about it, I also thought about Gail's podcast because it actually has a lot of similarities to show that you're not alone and to, yeah, spread the word that we're all in this together kind of thing. So, but would you like to tell us a little bit more about what your mission with the podcast is, Gail?
Yeah, of course. So, like I said earlier, when I started this podcast back in September of 2018, I didn't necessarily have a big mission or values that I was trying to spread. It was more of a, this is a really cool concept. It's something that I personally wish existed and it didn't. So why not just make it myself? And what ended up happening is that as the podcast grew, as more people tuned in, we started getting more messages, and people were telling us what the podcast meant to them, how it helped them. And as the podcast grew, I started to realize, I think there's like, this is doing more good than I even intended to do. It's helping in more ways than I even realized. And when I took a closer look at what exactly people were telling me, I realized that like people are enjoying the podcast because it's helping them feel less alone. They see their stories through our own. Whenever we talk about something, they'll be like, I went through that exact same thing, and it was really nice and really comforting hearing you guys talk about it because I could relate so much. It made me feel less alone. I was like, oh, I guess that's, one of our values. That really is what we're doing. And then the second value that we advocate for greatly is vulnerability, because our podcast is all about natural, raw, authentic conversations where we just simply talk about our experiences. We're not necessarily trying to spread any like tips and tricks or data or anything. We're not talking about the data of like substance abuse or how it affects us. It's kind of just it's more about how it affects us instead of the data. It's about our experiences because we're not professionals, right? We don't have numbers and things and credibility. And so we're like, instead of talking about the numbers, like for example, an issue like substance abuse, why not talk about how we feel, how it makes us feel, how it affects others around us? And that has been really impactful towards people around us. And so that's why we advocate for vulnerability.
Right. Hey, I have to come actually to an end here. We're like 6 minutes away until the end. I always know that this is going to go so quickly that we don't have time for something. And I also wanted to highlight that as we're talking about living the example, which is not a contest, not only a contest and a program. We happen to have it at Mentor and been very successful with this, but it is living the example that we hope that we're all doing. I know that everybody on that I see on screen today is living the example for me and showing me the example and inspiring me every day. So thanks for that. And in order to, but if you want to, or somebody that wants to enter the contest, because who doesn't want some money in January, in the new year, or have this fabulous experience, which is not the same experience that Gael had. I just want to clarify again, somebody wrote in on this as well on our questions. It is a different experience, super ultra cool. Actually, Gazim is one of the people who were contributing to this experience, but we can't tell you what it is, but everybody will literally be blown away, or what should I say? It's a out of this world experience. That's what we are usually calling it. Just go to our website. The mail that you got with the link to attend this, or the invite that you saw, how to RSVP to this webinar, you can even write there if you're interested in it, or go to our website, mentorfoundationusa.org, and click Living the Example, and you see everything there. And again, even the info mail that you received this linked on that is the same email that you send your video on, and it's less than 60 seconds. So just send it there with your name and how we can get a hold of you, and and then you're entered to win. You don't have to do anything else, and again, it's free. We actually have more questions. I mean, we have more questions from Clara, Ida, and Ellen, and there's also audience questions that we have. But I was going to pull up the last one, and this is actually from an audience. And then we have to. So, Gizim, if you can make this under a minute.
Yes.
I don't know if that's possible, but Mary is asking, what is your favorite thing when mentoring, inspiring, and working with young people?
Oh wow, there's so many things. I think, yes, I think that the biggest thing is when I see the change. You know, everyone comes with a dream, especially so I work in arts education, so I see them coming with a dream, and then I see the personal development and whatever they wanted to do come true. Yeah. And it takes time, but it makes me do it again and again and again and again and again. I mean, I've done it for 8 years now, so it's crazy.
Thank you. I'm looking at
30 seconds
again. Yeah, no, that was awesome. That was probably under 60 seconds. Amazing.
Nice.
Great.
Let's go.
There is actually questions for Gael and Jeremy as well from the audience. I think we're going to have to do this again, you know, because this went by so fast. I mean, we didn't even touch. We had so many prepared questions, and also the questions from the audience, and, you know, but it is really valuable. And maybe next time we have one topic, you know, that we can talk about and maybe do a series or something. But I do need to end this because I respect people's time, and even the audience as well, that I'm once again going to say thank you, because there's lots of things to do on a Thursday afternoon or evening, depending on where you are in the United States. So it really means a lot to us that you logged in and you watched, and hopefully you enjoyed it as well, and you keep on supporting and keep coming back to us and supporting the youth. That's the most important. I always say us, meaning the organization, but by doing that, you literally directly support the youth. And I think, again, going back to Gizim, they want you to support them. They need to be seen and heard and validated, because they are at that age, and we all are, even adults want this support. So it means a lot that you were here today, and it means a lot that we're going to see you in 2022. And thank you again to Clara, Ellen, and Ida, and then to the
thank you guys.
Yeah, the Gizim, Jeremy, and Gael. I mean, thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, lastly, I also want to say again, continue to support us by donating. You can do that on our website as well, and you'll get instantly a thank you, and it's a write-off for the taxes for the holidays, and you might find, you know, you can even gift that as a gift to somebody. Also, a little special mention that I thought of. So Mentor Foundation USA is founded by Her Majesty Queen Sylvia of Sweden and the World Health Organization. It happens to be Her Majesty's birthday next week. So I thought it would be nice. I need to sort of acknowledge that and just say happy birthday, because I'm sure at some point she will also see this webinar. So happy birthday, Her Majesty, and a happy holiday and a great new year to everyone around the globe and here who has been here, and all of you. So thank you so much. And we're right on time. We're ending now. Okay. See you in 2022.
Thank
you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.